Dr. Vinod Gupta, our Masterplan architect. He will be speaking about the IIT Gandhinagar Masterplan philosophy and highlights.
Friends, I speak here on behalf of Ujan Ghosh, who has been a partner of Green Campus Development Consortium, and also on behalf of Mohammad Shahir, who is no longer with us, but who was very much part of this master plan development process. As we go along in this 21st century, global warming is with us, and we have to deal with the effects of this in our settlements. And I believe that a campus like this, a residential campus, is a city in a microcosm, and cities are the places where people are going to be living more and more in times to come. So the social structure, the economic structure of this kind of a campus is quite different from that of a small town or a city. But many of the other systems that the city has, such as the ecological systems and the environmental system, they can be actually applied to a small place like this. And this gives us a great opportunity to experiment in a small area. And if these experiments are successful, then it is possible for us to apply them to a larger urban context. So it is in this spirit that the master plan was developed, first of all, to be able to test new ideas of dealing with environmental issues. And I'm extremely grateful to the team at IIT Gandhinagar and Professor Jain himself particularly for giving us this opportunity to deal with innovative technologies and ideas here. These ideas that I talk about are, which are applicable to urban areas. They are in terms of mobility without cars. They are managing water and wastewater, and particularly reusing these for purposes of productive purposes. And ultimately perhaps for growing food. Food is going to be one of the major problems in times to come. As we have a shortage of water, we will definitely have a shortage of food. And cities and campuses like this are places where we have actually got an abundance of water and abundance of nutrients. Abundance of water not because we have more rain falling here, but simply because we have the resources, and cities have the resources to get water from wherever it is possible, which villages don't have, which agriculture doesn't. And so we win out in these situations. The urban areas win out in these situations. So I wanted that some of these should be tried out here. Then of course the campus had to, lies between two major areas. On the north of it, or the east of it, is the river Sabarmati, which in itself is a fantastic setting. And on the west side is the highway, which is a not so interesting setting, but it is the access to this. And in between, the central portion of the campus has a lot of ravines. Also, the northern portion has a lot of ravines. So this presented a unique opportunity, a site in which about 40% of the area is wasted. And yet one has to be able to live with this. So, as one would normally do in such a thing, is that the academic areas, which is where visitors come and things happen, they are planned along the highway because they require access, and the housing is planned along the highway, and the student areas can go to the river. This is the normal plan, but we wanted that everybody who comes to this campus should experience the river, which is the most important part of the site. It is not the highway which is important. And therefore the academic areas were moved to the river, and Two problems were solved altogether. One is how to use these ravines, not to use them as lakes or to dam them and to fill them up and so on, but to let them be as part of a biodiversity area. And some of these ravines, which were already degraded heavily because of truck movement, there's been illegal sand mining going on in the river Sabarmati, and these trucks were using some of these ravines. So we use these to bring people to the campus, the academic area, which is on the eastern side next to the river. So these two things were solved together, and they appear to work well. This is the campus as it was, and this is what we saw of the river when we first came here. Now, what we understood of the aims of IIT were that there should be 10,000 students or whatever number close to this that we can get. There should be land for future activities, including a research park and many other incubation centers and so on. And there should be a green and sustainable campus. It should have a distinctive appearance. Our planning goals were slightly different. They were dealing with biodiversity, social equity, minimum water and energy imports, zero waste dumping, car-free mobility, and growing of energy and food, as I said earlier. The site plan was therefore evolved with a view toward providing this mobility without cars, and that there should be an internal public transport system. People would, of course, walk and so on, but this is one of the things that I am not sure if this is functional here, but I hope that at some point of time this will become functional. And space for growing food and energy needs to be provided, which is always there in any campus because there is a lot of land which is for future development. No campus develops quickly all in one go. And then this biological treatment and reuse of wastewater, which is happening, and we have very good results from this. The buildings, I'll let Vikram talk about those. But the ravines in themselves were areas where, we could use these for recycling water and wastewater and so on, and perhaps have a nice appearance to these. This is what the original concept was. One other thing relates to the kind of building typology that we have evolved here. We looked at, other IIT campus plans which have multi-storied buildings and others which have low walk-up buildings with low-rise walk-up buildings. And we found they occupy about the same amount of land. And this is something which was built into the campus. As we go along, there is always pressure that one must change this and one must have multi-storied buildings. But multi-storied buildings are there in the campus plan, and they are there for a particular reason, which is part of the urban design of this. They provide a distinct appearance to some parts of the campus. But we also looked at this, we have two models here. One on top was a competition scheme model, which we had done for housing this a given number of students, and on the, which were in a building which is 8 floors or 9 floors, and the lower one, which is just 4 floors, and we found they occupied about the same amount of area. So this is something which is part of the master plan, and it's good to see that it is being implemented. The build form, as I said, is low-rise walk-up buildings, human-scale courtyards, which one can see very much here, because the academic buildings are, and the hostel buildings have these. And there are very few high-rise blocks which have not yet come up. And there should be space for construction labor and outsourced workers housing, which seems to be happening. From the awards, I see that there are many such initiatives that have been at work with this. And finally, an open boundary to the campus. I would have loved to see an open boundary all around. An educational campus, by its nature, should be a place which should be open to people to come. But this doesn't happen in our country. So at least visually, we have on one side of the campus, we have a sense of openness towards the river. There is no boundary there, which is very nice. These are systems, and these are pictures of the academic building, which look very nice. the hostels, and the housing. Thank you.